Wildland firefighters rely on a variety of strategies, tactics, and tools to respond safely and effectively to wildfires. Whether engaged in fuels management, fire suppression, or post-fire repair, you are bound to find yourself working alongside heavy equipment. When working with any type of heavy equipment, it is critical to understand how to keep yourself and your crew safe. The Incident Response Pocket Guide contains a useful reference for best practices when working with heavy equipment.
So within the IRPG, when working around heavy equipment, stay at least 100 feet in front and 50 feet behind, and then transitioning into the timber fuel type, it's 2.5 tree lengths away from the heavy equipment. However, every scenario is different within that lighter fuel type. It's going to vary. Sometimes you want to be right on them, or you'll be out ahead, looking where some things zag and zig and turn.
It's going to start knocking trees over, so watch out.
So within the IRPG, it states when working in timber fuel type to stay 2.5 tree lengths in front of heavy equipment. They can bump a tree, knock one over into a snag, and you really need to maintain that distance. So you just need to really think about what you're doing, and one way to be successful in that is to really use some flagging, have a communication plan with the operator. You just got to have your plan figured out. You do need to come within that 2.5 tree lengths to communicate with them. But definitely within the timber fuel type, keep some spacing when working with heavy equipment. Within the IRPG, it states no one but the operator should ride in the equipment. That's pretty obvious. There's only one seat in virtually all heavy equipment. You just got to sort out those details and not get into a predicament where the logistical hand forces you to perhaps want to jump in with a dozer or some heavy equipment to get a ride. There shouldn't be a need unless it's an emergency, such as medical or something like that, where at the end of the day, you can pretty much walk faster than most pieces of heavy equipment. The IRPG states never to approach the equipment until you have eye contact with the operator and all the attachments have been lowered to the ground. So some things that I use for communicating with the heavy equipment operator, obviously tying flagging to the end of the tool, waving it around until you can hear them kind of stop what they're doing. If it's a dozer, they stop pushing for a second or maybe back up and then stop. And you've got their attention, and then maybe give them a shutdown for a minute, and then they'll lower the blade, and then you can walk up to them and talk to them. An excavator, I'll always come onto the left side of the cab where their cab is on the left side of the machine and try to get out around in front of them so I can see them and get their attention. And you make eye contact and give them a shutdown for a minute, and then they'll drop the boom and then come up and talk to them. Feller bunchers, masticators, that's another story where you can't get in the 500 feet of where the chips are flying. That's where the radio or getting out that distance and waving your tool with the flagging on it to get their attention and wait for that head to shut down and lower it before you approach it. The primary ways for that rule of thumb is multiple ways to communicate in daylight, flagging on the tool, hand signals. At night, you can use a glow stick on the back of your head, a glow stick on the end of your tool handle. Those are some of the ways for communicating and establishing that contact so you can approach the equipment. Okay, another bullet in the IRPG is never work downhill of rolling equipment, and that's a must follow. And as a heavy equipment boss and both as an operator, experienced operators, before engaging in any work, you got to make sure there's no one below you because of rolling rocks and logs and other things that can get dislodged and rolled down the hill. Just if you suspect there's someone down there, you have to shut down, notify them, get confirmation that they're out of the way before you get going. There's been several cases in the past of firefighters getting struck by rolling debris from heavy equipment. So final thoughts on that one, it's not a rule of thumb, it's a must follow. And that goes even as well for vehicles and equipment below you. Say you're punching line downhill, down a ridge, and it's fairly steep. That even goes not only for people, but for equipment, to get equipment out of there as well, and even have people play roadblocks and not let humans and other equipment into area where something can get kicked loose, because it can happen, and it has happened. So working at night with heavy equipment is much more dangerous due to reduced visibility. Some ways to help mitigate that: when working in light fuels, you can utilize glow sticks, the flashing lights on the back of your hard hat. You can put them on the end of your tool for visibility. It's really challenging for heavy equipment, dozers especially, when they're pushing and they've got the dust and potentially smoke. Visibility is really, really limited for them, so you really need to ensure before you approach the equipment that they know you're coming at them, and for them to know where the fire line is. You really got to help them out as well with flagging. And when working in the timber fuel type at night or in limited visibility, it's really important for the operator to know where you're at, and at the same time keep that distance within that timber fuel type. And that's pretty similar to the lighter fuel type: the lighting, the glow stick, the flagging, and even if you just needed to shut down frequently to make sure you and the operator are tracking, that's what you got to do. Establishing visual and radio communication methods prior to engaging. So I like to say a good start usually leads to a good finish. And so once you got the lowboy parked, everything set up, you've scouted it out, you know what the plan is, now you're ready to engage. Make sure your communications are in place with the operator. Every piece of equipment is different, every operator is different. Some of them have nice headsets that they can hear. Some of them, perhaps you have an open cab with just a handheld and they're not going to hear anything, and they've got earplugs in, and there's not going to be any communication there. So every instance is different. But before you go, try to figure out a couple of hand signals: stop, forward, back, put your blade over here, put your blade over here, push this over, push your berm out over here, take a little more, punch in a safety zone, whatever it is. Try to figure out some of those things ahead of time so that when it is time to get to work, you've got those communication things figured out with the hand signals, the visual cues, the shutdown, I'm approaching. Those are all those things you need to figure out. And as well, have the communication with adjoining forces within your work area as well. Engines, let them know you're coming through. Hand crews, let them know you're coming through. Make sure they're not downhill from you. Things like that. Things they can help you with: cutting fences, scouting, maybe throwing some bucks and some logs here or there, burning out behind you. Get all those things sorted out and figured out. Okay, within the IRPG, we have communicate all hazards to the operator. We got spot fires, firing operations, obstacles as some examples. Make sure you do a quick operational briefing with them every morning and just keep them in the loop what's going on as things progress, as fire changes, you get slop overs or spots, wind changes, tactical changes. Just keep them in the loop on everything. Okay, within the IRPG, it addresses the difficulty operators have seeing personnel when they're working. It goes for a lot of heavy equipment, dozers, excavators. They're on that blind left-hand side. They can't really see the right side of their equipment where they're swinging their boom to the right. Similar for feller bunchers off that right side.
No list of best practices will ever be sufficient to protect you from all hazards. You must improve your knowledge and situational awareness by studying heavy equipment capabilities and limitations, examining past accidents and near misses, and learning from local experts. Speak to your module leads and equipment operators. Keep your eyes, ears, and mind open, and utilize the best practices referenced in the IRPG to keep yourself and your crew safe when working with heavy equipment.